their collider to open up a portal to communicate with extraterrestrial beings.
Wow.
And one of them are the occupants from 3i Atlas.
On a quiet night in June 2025, something impossible happened. The internet exploded with reports that the interstellar object known as 3i Atlas had just contacted Earth. Within hours, anonymous posts turned into a global storm, spreading across every major platform. People claimed a strange radio signal had been detected, one that repeated like a voice trying to speak through the stars. Scientists rushed to verify the data, and what they found left them silent. The message wasn't random noise. It carried structure, rhythm, and purpose. If this really was a greeting from deep space, what was it trying to say? On June 5, 2025, the SETI Institute detected a narrowband radio signal unlike anything ever recorded. It came from the direction of Kepler 442b, a potentially habitable planet about 1,200 light-years away. The signal repeated at perfect intervals, each pulse separated by a precise gap, as if it had been designed. At first, researchers thought it might be a satellite reflection or a glitch caused by background noise. But the pattern kept returning, steady and exact, with mathematical precision that no natural source could produce. For decades, SETI had scanned the skies searching for signs of life, recording thousands of strange bursts that always ended in disappointment. Yet this time, the data looked different. The frequency remained stable. The modulation carried structure. When decoded into visual form, it showed repeating bands that resembled coded symbols rather than random waves. Some scientists described it as a rhythm, others as a kind of digital heartbeat echoing across space. Whatever it was, it felt intentional. At the SETI Command Center in California, the first team meeting lasted through the night. Dozens of analysts and engineers gathered around the glowing spectrograms, arguing quietly over what they were seeing. Every attempt to classify the signal failed. It didn't match any known astronomical source, pulsar, or interference from Earth satellites. When they ran AI models to simulate its behavior, the results only deepened the mystery. The algorithms identified multiple layers of modulation that appeared to encode information in both frequency and amplitude. Within hours, the discovery reached Dr. Lina Romani, a respected astrophysicist from Berkeley who had spent years collaborating with SETI. She confirmed that the signal had been independently verified by 2 other observatories in South America and Europe. The chances of random noise repeating in the exact same sequence across 3 different receivers were practically zero. To her, this was the most credible evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence ever documented. That evening, SETI prepared for a live press briefing. Cameras lined the room, and millions tuned into the stream. Dr. Romani stepped forward, her voice calm but trembling slightly as she described the data. "This signal," she said, "shows organized patterns that suggest an intelligent origin." Her words sent shockwaves through the scientific community. For the first time, someone had publicly implied that humanity might not be alone. But as questions poured in from reporters, the feed suddenly froze. The image on the screen flickered, then cut to black. Viewers assumed it was a technical issue, yet minutes turned into hours with no explanation. The video vanished from SETI's channel and no official statement followed. By morning, speculation flooded the internet. Some said the broadcast was censored. Others believed the system had crashed under the weight of global attention. But deep inside SETI's servers, the data remained untouched, silent, precise, and waiting. If that transmission truly came from Kepler 442b, then who or what was trying to speak to us? 2 days after the broadcast vanished, an anonymous post appeared on an underground science forum. It claimed to contain a leaked NASA briefing file labeled Kepler 442b Transmission, Phase 2. At first, few took it seriously. The internet is full of fake leaks and wild theories. But as users opened the file, the atmosphere shifted. The data inside was far too complex to be an internet hoax. There were full spectrograms, waveform analyses, and AI-generated translations. Each document carried metadata matching NASA's internal formatting. Someone somewhere had shared something real. The most shocking part was the translation itself. Hidden within the digital notes was a short, structured message that sent chills down everyone who read it. It said, "We have watched. We come in cycles. You are not alone. Prepare." Those 4 sentences changed everything. The phrase, "we come in cycles," suggested time, repetition, and purpose. It hinted that whoever sent it had been observing humanity for longer than anyone could imagine. Across online communities, users began breaking down every word, running pattern recognition software to see if other meanings were hidden within. Some claimed the frequency data carried a second layer of encryption. Others noticed that the signal intervals mirrored the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical pattern found throughout nature and art. Within hours, scientists from independent research groups started cross-verifying the leak. Several confirmed that the spectrograms aligned perfectly with the public SETI data from June 5th. If the leak was fake, it had somehow replicated proprietary measurements down to the smallest decimal. That level of accuracy could only come from internal sources. The post exploded across platforms, spreading from small forums to Reddit, Twitter, and YouTube. Millions began sharing screenshots and analysis videos, treating the discovery like a digital treasure hunt for proof of alien contact. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the thread vanished. On June 9th, every copy of the document was deleted. Accounts that had shared it were suspended, and links returned 404 not found. Even archive sites and cached versions were wiped clean. It was as if the file had never existed. For many, that deletion was confirmation enough. A coordinated erasure, they said, only happens when something true has slipped through. News outlets reached out to NASA for comment, but officials offered none. SETI's representatives gave brief statements denying any breach, yet refused to discuss the leaked translation. Conspiracy theories exploded, and the phrase, "you are not alone," trended worldwide. Some believed the government was hiding a discovery that could rewrite human history. Others thought the message was misunderstood, or worse, never meant for us at all. By the evening of June 9th, online discussions had fractured into camp believers, skeptics, and those terrified of what "prepare" might mean. Was it a warning, a countdown, or an invitation? No one knew for sure, but the feeling of unease spread faster than any official statement. If the leak was authentic, then someone or something had spoken first. The only question now was whether humanity would dare to answer back. On June 11, 2025, the world expected answers. Instead, it received silence. The White House held a short press briefing confirming that anomalies were detected in communication arrays, but it quickly added that there was no evidence of intelligent origin. The statement sounded cautious, almost rehearsed, and it raised more questions than it answered. Reporters pressed for clarification, but the conference ended in under 5 minutes. No documents were released, and no official follow-up came afterward. The biggest scientific story in human history had suddenly gone quiet. Within hours, a strange pattern began to unfold. NASA's Deep Space Network, which controls most of the world's interplanetary communication systems, announced scheduled maintenance across all major antennas. SETI's live-streaming telescope feeds, once open to the public, displayed error messages. Even archived data from the week before the signal vanished from the database. It was as if someone had turned off a switch and erased every trace of the discovery. Scientists who had previously spoken out began retreating from the public eye. Some deleted their posts, others refused interviews. Dr. Lina Romani, whose face had appeared on global headlines only days earlier, released a brief message saying she was no longer authorized to discuss the matter. Her tone was formal, distant, almost fearful. Observers noticed the shift immediately. It didn't feel like normal protocol, it felt like control. Meanwhile, media outlets tried to keep the story alive, but something was happening behind the scenes. Independent journalists reported that their uploads about the signal were being demonetized or removed entirely. Podcasts discussing the leak disappeared from major platforms overnight. Even international broadcasters seemed reluctant to mention Kepler 442b again. Viewers started noticing the silence spreading, not only through institutions, but across the entire information network. This sudden blackout had a psychological impact. The public's curiosity began to twist into suspicion. People wondered why governments that had once encouraged space exploration were now avoiding questions about one of the most significant discoveries ever made. Some argued that officials feared public panic. Others believed the signal carried information too dangerous to reveal. Social media turned into a battlefield of theories, from cosmic warnings to secret negotiations with alien intelligence. As the days passed, the silence itself became the message. Experts in communication theory pointed out that suppressing discussion often amplifies belief. The more agencies refused to speak, the more people felt certain that something monumental was being hidden. When the truth vanishes, one analyst wrote, the imagination takes over, and imagination is much louder. Across forums, users began collecting fragments of deleted data, screenshots, and recordings. They built an unofficial archive of everything related to 3I Atlas and the Kepler transmission. Despite takedown orders, backups kept resurfacing. The harder institutions tried to erase the evidence, the more visible it became. It was no longer just a mystery of science, it was a crisis of trust. By the end of the week, the phrase, "the silence is the proof," trended globally. To many, the quiet wasn't protection, it was confession. Humanity realized that the question was no longer whether we were being contacted, but why those in power were so afraid to admit it. If the truth was being buried, who was doing the burying, and what were they trying so desperately to hide? 3 days after the official silence began, a man calling himself Jake appeared on a private online forum for aerospace engineers. His post was simple, just a few lines claiming he had worked at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory during the early analysis of the Kepler 442b transmission. He wrote that what the public had seen was only a fraction of the truth. The real discovery, he said, was far bigger. Within hours, screenshots spread everywhere, and soon journalists began searching for him. Jake's identity was verified by several independent researchers who confirmed that his credentials matched a real JPL systems engineer who had vanished from internal records shortly after June 11th. He had shared no personal details, but his technical descriptions were precise enough to convince experts that he was genuine. What caught everyone's attention was his central claim: Earth had already responded to the signal, and multiple replies had been received in return. According to Jake, the decision to send a return transmission was made quietly inside a secured NASA facility in California. A small team used one of the Deep Space Network antennas to transmit a mathematical sequence back to the coordinates of Kepler 442b. The sequence represented prime numbers and geometric ratios, an attempt to show intelligence without using human language. 48 hours later, a narrowband signal was detected on 3 separate channels, each containing a mirrored version of the pattern Earth had sent, followed by new data embedded in its tail. Jake explained that the new signal wasn't random. Embedded within the waveforms was an amplitude fluctuation, forming a recognizable ratio identical to the golden mean, a mathematical constant linked to patterns in nature. To the engineers, it was unmistakable. Someone or something was answering. Yet the response contained no words, no symbols, only mathematical elegance that seemed to echo human logic back at us. Soon after, Jake claimed, higher authorities ordered all related systems locked down under national security protocols. The data was classified, and the researchers involved were bound by non-disclosure agreements. He himself was removed from the project 2 days later. When he asked for clarification, he was told to forget what he saw. After that, his work accounts were terminated, and his name disappeared from JPL's internal database. Despite the risk, he decided to speak out, stating that the public deserved to know the truth. It was not a threat, his final post read. It was an invitation. His message ended abruptly, and his profile went offline within minutes. Attempts to trace his location failed. Some users believed he had gone into hiding. Others feared he had been silenced. Jake's revelation reignited the debate that had nearly died out after the government's denial. If Earth had truly received a response, then the meaning of the word prepare had changed completely. It was no longer a warning from afar, but perhaps the beginning of a dialogue. If that's true, what exactly had humanity agreed to when it decided to answer back? While the world debated whether Jake's confession was real, astronomers began detecting something far stranger. Across multiple observatories, a new interstellar object had entered the outer edge of the solar system. At first, it appeared to be just another comet, but soon its behavior defied every known model. It was moving too fast, following a path too perfect, and reflecting light too consistently to be natural. The object was officially designated 3I Atlas, making it only the 3rd confirmed visitor from beyond our solar system. By late June 2025, telescopes from Chile to Hawaii locked onto it. What they saw left scientists speechless. The brightness of 3I Atlas implied that it wasn't a small piece of ice or rock. If the light reflected off a solid surface, then the body had to be around 12.4 miles in diameter, larger than Manhattan Island. That size didn't make sense. The previous interstellar objects, Oumuamua and Borisov, had been tiny fragments, hundreds of times smaller. To suddenly find an object this massive, perfectly aligned with the plane of the planets, was beyond coincidence. As the data poured in, astronomers noticed something even more unusual. Unlike comets, 3I Atlas showed no visible tail, no jets of gas, no rotation that matched natural drift. Its light curve was perfectly stable, as if its surface was engineered to absorb and redirect sunlight evenly. Some specialists suggested it might be a fragment of a dead planet or a piece of interstellar debris polished by radiation. Others quietly admitted that the precision of its trajectory resembled guidance rather than gravity. When NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory simulated its path, the results were unsettling. The object was not drifting randomly through space. It was traveling directly along the ecliptic, the same plane followed by Earth, Mars, and the rest of the inner planets. At its current velocity, it would make its closest pass near Earth's orbit on December 17, 2025. The alignment was exact within fractions of a degree. If it were a natural body, one researcher said anonymously, it's the most disciplined rock in the universe. Soon, voices in the scientific community began drawing comparisons to the Kepler 442b transmission. The timing was uncanny. Barely 2 weeks after the signal's discovery, this massive object appeared, as if answering a call. Harvard astrophysicist Dr. Avi Loeb stated in an interview that 3I Atlas could be an artificial craft, possibly a probe or a remnant of technology designed for long-distance travel. His comment sparked outrage among traditional astronomers, but for many, it felt like the first honest explanation anyone had offered. Media outlets tried to downplay the story, calling it speculative, but the numbers spoke for themselves. 3I Atlas was accelerating slightly as it approached the inner solar system, something gravity alone couldn't explain. The motion seemed controlled. For the public, that was enough. Theories flooded social media. It was a ship, a beacon, or maybe the messenger behind the phrase, "prepare." If that's true, then maybe the message wasn't just a warning. Maybe it was a promise. And the thing moving toward us 3I Atlas was the fulfillment of it. On June 15, 2025, while 3I Atlas continued its silent approach toward the inner solar system, a new phenomenon captured the world's attention. Amateur astronomers from Chile, Japan, and Canada began reporting synchronized flashes of light coming from the same direction as Kepler 442b. At first, many thought it was a coincidence, maybe reflections from satellites or high-altitude aircraft. But the pattern was too deliberate to ignore. The lights pulsed in a repeating sequence, 3 short bursts, then 6 long, then 3 again occurring every 19 hours. It was the same rhythm embedded in the Kepler signal received by SETI just weeks earlier. Within days, observatories across the globe turned their telescopes toward the coordinates. Unlike ordinary star flickers or cosmic interference, these flashes were consistent in both timing and brightness. No natural source could replicate such precision. Scientists confirmed the light did not originate from solar activity or atmospheric distortion. Whatever was emitting it was powerful, intelligent, and likely intentional. Some researchers suggested it was a continuation of the communication, an attempt to send a visual counterpart to the radio message. Others believed it could be a kind of interstellar handshake, using light as a universal language. The strange thing was that the flashes appeared to correspond with Earth's rotation. Every time the signal completed a full cycle, a measurable burst of radio noise was detected near the Deep Space Network's antennas. The synchronization hinted that whoever was sending the lights knew exactly where Earth was positioned and when it was listening. That level of awareness was impossible to achieve without active observation. As data accumulated, the flashes began to evolve. By the fourth night, additional pulses were recorded in shorter intervals, creating geometric patterns when plotted on graphs. The ratios matched the structure of prime numbers and the golden mean, the same constants that appeared in both the first transmission and the mirrored signal Jake had described. To the scientific community, this was undeniable proof that the communication wasn't random. Someone was responding in two mediums at once, sound and light. The news reignited public fascination. Social media erupted with theories, videos, and live streams tracking the pulses in real time. Some users built home detectors to measure light frequency, trying to decode hidden messages. Others speculated the sequence might be a countdown to the arrival of 3I Atlas itself. The connection between the flashes and the approaching object became the focus of every major discussion board, as if the universe itself was sending humanity a visible reminder. Government agencies remained silent. SETI's official channels refused to comment, claiming ongoing verification. Yet the evidence was already everywhere, captured by independent observers using nothing more than backyard telescopes. The message had escaped containment. By the end of June, thousands of verified recordings confirmed the 3 to 6 to 3 cycle. The question was no longer whether the lights were real, but what they meant. Were they signaling understanding, invitation, or warning? If this was their way of speaking, then perhaps the next message wouldn't come from the stars, but from something far closer. Just as the flashes from Kepler 442b reached their peak intensity, another video surfaced online that sent shockwaves through social media. A passenger flying from Bogota to Medellin, Colombia, had captured something extraordinary through his airplane window. The footage showed a massive shadowed object emerging through layers of clouds. It had 4 enormous arms stretching outward, piercing through the mist like a colossal structure suspended in midair. The passenger's voice trembled as he whispered, "That's not a mountain." Within hours, the clip went viral, amassing millions of views and sparking fierce debates among scientists and skeptics alike. The airline confirmed the video's authenticity but could not explain what was seen. According to flight data, the plane was cruising at 32,000 feet, far above Colombia's highest peaks. There were no other aircraft nearby, no known weather formations capable of producing such a symmetrical shape. Meteorologists ruled out cloud shadows and temperature inversions. The object simply shouldn't have been there. Some claimed it was a camera illusion caused by moisture glare, while others believed it was something far more advanced, perhaps related to the strange flashes from deep space. As analysis continued, independent researchers enhanced the footage frame by frame. The object's movement appeared deliberate, not random. It hovered for nearly 20 seconds before fading back into the clouds. Military sources quietly denied any experimental activity in the region. Yet a leaked radar log from a nearby airbase showed an unidentified anomaly tracked during the same time window. The radar signature was enormously larger than any commercial aircraft and moving at an impossible speed before it vanished entirely. This wasn't the first time pilots had reported seeing unusual aerial entities. Over the past decade, multiple encounters described objects without wings, exhaust, or visible propulsion systems. They could accelerate instantly, turn at sharp angles, and vanish without leaving contrails. These incidents were often classified under unidentified aerial phenomena, but none had ever coincided with global astronomical events until now. Experts are divided into two camps. One side argued that the Columbia sighting might be atmospheric distortion linked to electromagnetic interference from 3I Atlas. The other side proposed that what was seen was a controlled craft, possibly connected to the same intelligence behind the Kepler transmission. The symmetry, size, and proximity to the equator made Columbia an ideal vantage point for any object entering Earth's upper atmosphere. The public, already primed by weeks of cosmic mystery, was ready to believe. Threads across Reddit and X claimed the object was observing us, mirroring the same 3-6-3 pattern through electromagnetic pulses invisible to the naked eye. Whether or not these claims were true, one fact became impossible to ignore. The phenomenon was no longer confined to telescopes or data logs. It had entered our skies. If the lights in the distance were a message, then perhaps this was its messenger, arriving not from the stars above, but from the clouds right over our heads. The events of June 2025 changed how humanity looks at the sky forever. A message was received, decoded, and answered. Then came the silence, the flashes, and the shadow in the clouds. Together they form a story that no government can erase. Prepare may have been more than a warning. It could be an invitation to step beyond fear and face something greater than ourselves. Whether 3I Atlas is a visitor or a mirror reflecting our curiosity, one truth remains: the universe has started speaking back. The question now is, are we truly ready to listen? Like, share, and subscribe for more hidden stories the world ignores.